back, everybody, to episode 5 of ATL Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Shepard. I'm joined today by Seth Voltz. Before I get started today, I'd like to announce our new sponsorship with lineupcards.com. We've used these guys for 6 or 7 years. They do great work. If you've got any needs for lineup cards, head over there to lineupcards.com. You can get dugout cards printed. You can get cards printed that you hand to the umpire. Those guys do great work over there. And again, we've worked for them for 6 or 7 years, and they are absolutely awesome. So, Seth, how's it going?
Great, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no problem, dude. I kind of threw up a Hail Mary, if you will, and came through, decided to come on, and I appreciate that. So why don't you tell me a little bit about, your journey and how you got to Notre Dame?
Yeah, of course. So I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. I played at VCU. Had a good career there as a right-handed pitcher, and then at the end of my career was a very interesting transition time. There were, looking back at it, there were a lot of really good coaches there. Coach Paul Keys was our head coach. Sean Stifler was our pitching coach. Jeff Palumbo was our hitting coach, and CJ Rhodes, who had a pretty good career as a coach, was also on that staff, and he had transitioned to a new job. I was coming in to kind of fill his job after I graduated, but Coach Keys had gotten sick, so they went out and hired Kurt Elbin from. He was at Shepherd, I believe, ironically enough, and he came in and filled that third assistant role at VCU. So I kind of took a step down into a graduate assistant position while I was getting my master's degree, but we needed Kurt there due to the recruiting experience he had. And so Coach Keys ended up passing away. He had gotten sick and got cancer. He passed away that fall, and that left Coach Stifler to be the head coach. And I'll circle back to this a little bit, but then it was Stifler, Palumbo, Elbin, and myself. And so now, Coach Stifler is now the head coach here at Notre Dame. I'm obviously here at Notre Dame. Jeff Palumbo is the associate head coach at East Carolina, and Kurt Elbin is the recruiting coordinator at Virginia Tech. So there were a lot of good coaches on that group. I was there for 2 years. I went out to UT Martin, which is in the OVC, and spent 2 seasons there. And then went to Wofford College for 5.5 years. And then in November of 21, I took the position at VCU. So Stiff's pitching coach, Mike McCray, took the head job at William & Mary. He called me up, asked me if I wanted to come back and do round 2 there at VCU, which I did. And we had a great year that year, went 42-20, something like that. And Stiff is well deserving and had been in the mix for a lot of opportunities. So I was only back in Richmond for about 6 months, and he got the job at Notre Dame and asked me to come with him. So that's how I ended up here.
That's awesome. And I mean, we ran into each other while you were at Wofford. Common theme on this podcast, a lot of Wofford guys. So, and surprisingly enough, that's the second time Shepherd University has been mentioned in the first 5 episodes. Coach Jackson at the University of Maryland played at Shepherd University. So you're one of the smarter guys in the scene. So when you agreed to hop on, obviously that was, as a human, I was pumped about that, but also, the fact that you're at Notre Dame, and that's huge, right? That's huge for us. And a lot of our, athletes are high academic, and they want to go to schools like Notre Dame. So having you on, and you can kind of speak about what it's like there, what you guys are looking for in recruits is, I was super pumped that we were able to get this in, and it happened quick. It wasn't like a 2 or 3 week waiting period for you. So I was excited to say the least. So with with being at Notre Dame and the high academic portion of that, talk a little bit about how those academics play into the role of you recruiting.
Yeah, so when I got an opportunity, I played at a public school, and I was always a good student. I had opportunities to go to a private school out of high school. or at least a little more academic schools. And I turned them down because I went to VCU for some reasons that were drawn to me at the time. But I went to public school. I got good grades, and then I went to another public school in UT Martin. So the first 8 years of my college baseball experience, I was at public schools, and then I got to Wofford, and I thought it'd be a really good experience to kind of see the other side of things. You're not recruiting as many of the junior college route. Your pool is good or bad. It's kind of diminished a little bit. And I remember specifically when I took that job and I started getting my head around the academic requirements. I was like, man, we're not going to have any good players. I was like, this is never going to work. And then you start realizing how many good players are out there that fit that mold, and you have all these opportunities with these players when you get there. So I say that to say, very similar to Notre Dame. We have a national brand, so we can go coast to coast.
A little bit of a national.
Yeah, yeah. So we can go east to west, north to south. We can do all that. And what you learn about Notre Dame is it's unique in the sense of they want to win a national championship in academics and athletics. When you're with the professors or you're with the support staff, like these are the best of the best in their fields. And a lot of them, this is their goal destination. Like these professors have been working their butts off to get here. Um, or the counselors or the admissions liaisons, et cetera. So there's not too many places in the world where you can really look at, say, all right, they're trying to win a national championship in the classroom and on the field. So with that being said, though, our admissions, um, they do a very good job of being subjective with us when it comes to the admissions process. They
Mm-hmm.
want our students to challenge themselves and to take as much rigor as possible. But I think one thing that they've gotten away from, which is a positive, is a lot of students. And I know when I was in the recruiting process, a lot of people would say, "All right, so what GPA do I need? What SAT score do I need? What ACT score?" And it was kind of like black and white. You were
Yep.
just checking boxes.
Yep.
Uh, Now COVID eliminated a lot of the ACT, SAT stuff, but there's a more holistic approach now. So when people say like, "All right, what type of academic needs?" And I'm like, look, you just have to take as much rigor as possible. Like whether we have a player from a public school in South Dakota, right? They don't have the same class curriculum
Mm-hmm.
as the player who's from a private school in New York City, New York.
Yep.
You have to take rigor that your school offers, and I think that gives it a pretty cool view. And then just to wrap this up a little bit, we are looking for the academic student, someone who prioritizes academics, but not one that prioritizes it over baseball.
Mm-hmm.
We are trying to win a national championship.
Oh yeah.
You need that type of mindset. You need guys that are obsessed with playing baseball, but that they also value their education, and they know that we want all of our guys to play in professional baseball. The chances of them playing and making enough money to never get another job, very, very slim. So we want them to know that, hey, you may go make, a couple 100,000, which is probably the average in pro ball, but you're going to need a job. You're going to need a career, and having a degree from Notre Dame will take care of that.
Yeah, I think obviously COVID was such a tough time for the world. It did do some good things, in my opinion, and it brought some good things, and eliminating just the black and white of this test score, this GPA, I think has been huge, because some kids are bad test takers. Some kids, like you said, their school just doesn't offer the same curriculum as everywhere else, and not all GPAs were created equal. Just like, if a kid sends you stats and they hit
Yeah.
350 and one, in high school, and another kid hit 350 in high school, those 350s are not equal because one kid maybe played and never saw above 80, and the other kid played and it was in the heart of Atlanta where you're seeing 85, 86 to 95 every weekend, So I think that's been, I think that's been a good change that COVID brought about. So backing up, if you want to share a little bit, I don't know actually where you'd go with it, but I'm curious. You said you chose VCU for different reasons than academics. Do you want to shed any light on what those are? Or?
Yeah, so when I came out of high school, um, I was being recruited by most of the schools in Virginia, not the University of Virginia or Virginia Tech.
Yeah,
There's a lot of really good schools in the state, and honestly, man, I just really wanted to win.
yeah,
And I think Coach Schiffler did a great job in the recruiting process. If you know him or get to know him, man, he's a very welcoming person, and that helped. But I just really wanted to win, man. We all have our experiences, and
yeah,
I went to high school that my freshman year they were, let's just call it like 2-18, right? It was really bad,
right.
and we developed and developed, and at the end of it, we were competing with the best teams in that district. Um, and I wasn't looking for another rebuild. There were some schools that were throwing big offers that were like, hey man, we're 2 or 3 years away from this thing, and that's not what I was looking for. I was looking, VCU has one of the best winning traditions in mid-major baseball, and I wanted to be a part of it.
I think I appreciate you sharing that because again, I had no idea that's why I chose VCU, but you know, this being a podcast or a video cast, what you will, for our families and our players, I think it's really hard for them, and we both went through it to d- decide on different schools and what's important and why you want to go to those schools. So I think shedding as much light for them on how you choose schools is huge. It's and everybody's different. There's not a right or a wrong reason. There's I went to a college for 1 year and I transferred out because the academics were ridiculous and I couldn't cut it. And it also was 50 some $1,000s a year. And my parents were like, we can't afford for you to go there. Luckily, I played Legion ball that next summer, and I got one other offer from a Division II school that you know paid 50% of my school, so I had to go there for that reason. Some people want to win. Some people want to play early. Some people care about academics more. Whatever it may be. So I think just getting those experiences from coaches is huge. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I kind of put you on the spot um, on that. So
You mind if I expand on that? I have a
no, please, absolutely go.
Yeah, so I think that's a great point. Like, it's different for everybody, and I go through the recruiting process 50 times a year,
Oh yeah.
every year, right? So I tell guys all the time, figure out what the couple most important things are for you.
Yeah.
That is, like, I really like football games, and that's a little abstract, but I figured out at some point innately, I didn't write it down, but I just figured out I really, really wanted to win.
Yeah.
And I think ECU gave me that opportunity to play with a bunch of winners who were expected to win, knew a culture of winning. And the story that I tell is, actually, I was at Wofford and I was recruiting a kid from the Atlanta area, not you all's program, but I was recruiting a kid from the Atlanta area. And I remember at one point I was like, all right, man, what is most important to you? And I kind of gave him a list of things like, what do you think from this is most important to you? And he said, playing time.
hmm
I said, okay, like there's nothing wrong with that. And I said, do you prioritize playing time over being good? Meaning, would you rather play more for a bad team or play less for a good team? He's like, play more for a bad team. Now, at that point, like our relationship was over because I wasn't interested in that.
Of
But I
course.
was very impressed that he was that committed to, like, he knew what he wanted. He knew what he
I was gonna say mad props to that kid for actually admitting it. And again, that's I'd rather have him tell me that and he knows that than him try to tell you what you want to hear and lie to himself, and then he comes to Wofford and you guys are really good and he doesn't play early, and then he wants to transfer because he's not playing, even though you guys won 50 games.
because I mean, unless you have a perfect case scenario, there's usually a balance, right? Like, I chose
Oh yeah.
that scholarship money to go to VCU. Some people would tell me that I'm crazy. I could have gone for free to a couple other programs in the state, but I chose to pay a little more to go somewhere. Like some people may go, "Wow, man, that's a bold move out of a 17-year-old with no job." Like,
Yeah.
uh, and I came from a very blue collar household, so I think it is really important to, if you can step back and say, all right, what really is important to me and my family in this recruiting process, then you can start to chip away at different schools.
Yeah. And being honest with yourself as a player is in a family altogether, because it's not just very rare. It's the player's decision and the player only, and the parents are go wherever you want. We support you. It doesn't matter. We don't have an opinion. We just want you to be happy. It If you're honest with yourself with finances and academics and playing time versus good program, you're gonna you're gonna find the right fit much more often than if you're worried about what looks good on your TikTok reel that you committed to this place, or what looks good on Snapchat to your friends that you were at a Georgia game, at a Georgia football game, and they were recruiting. You know what I mean? Like, and Gio has said this when we were coaching at Oglethorpe to everybody, and it's so true. Just go where you wanted and go where the best fit is for you. Because if you try and force a fit, 9 out of 10, 99 out of 100, in my opinion, it works. It doesn't work out. It does not work out if you try to force something. And granted, there's always, the stories of the kid that walked on at, a Division I school, and all of a sudden out of nowhere he is a baller and he's playing for them. And of course those stories are out there, and people will say, well, he bet on himself. Like, you should always bet on yourself. Yes, in some cases I do believe that, but I think the fit and where you're going to be happy matters the most. And I mean, it's so hard, right? Because, like, fortunate enough for you, you knew what you wanted and you knew it mattered. But a lot of times kids don't know what they want, and they think they know, and it's usually just based on what their buddies have said or what they think they're going to want. But it's so hard. I mean, the whole process is so hard, for everybody, especially for you guys, and you never have to ask if you can expound on anything. Like, that's all great information for our families to, to hear. And, what matters to you guys. How is the recruiting at Notre Dame, Power 5, higher academic, different than Wofford, or the same? I mean, what factors are the same? What factors are different? Um, go into that a little bit for us.
Well, I'm sure at some point, in the first handful of episodes, we've got up to speed on the recruiting rules.
Mm-hmm.
So, all the new stuff that's in place. So I'll tell you the biggest difference was um just the total breadth of the recruiting. Like, you'd be recruiting, like, I showed up here in August of 22, I guess. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
Um
That's what
and
your
we're
that's what your bio says.
There you go. Great. But we're recruiting, I mean, literally, we're recruiting 26s, 25s, 24s, 23s, all in the same day, you know? Um, and I had gotten a little bit of a taste of that at VCU because, we walked away from our regional appearance at North Carolina. We lost in the regional championship game. And then you're doing portal, junior college, the kids that are coming in, the 23 class and the 24 class. So, you're dealing with so many different people at the same time. Um, that was like the biggest difference when I got to Notre Dame, is like, and remember, like, dealing with one class doesn't just mean you're dealing with a handful of players. You're dealing with a culture, you're dealing with different travel coaches, you're dealing with, maybe you have to get the parents involved because the kids are younger. So now you have those relationships. So recruiting one player could take you three or four, there could be three or four people in their circle that you're also having to manage. Um, so it was just holy smokes, this is a lot of recruiting, a lot going on. So a little bit different at Wofford is our junior college pool there is accessible, um, but there's not as much. there's not as much because you just have a little higher academic requirement. Here, we have a very tough academic requirement out of junior college. So it's a little harder, these junior college players that we recruit, which we haven't signed one in my year and a half, but they have to have rigor. They have to have real classes. They can't have baseball and walking, on their junior college transcript. Um, so that part's out of it a little bit. And I hate to get long winded, but the biggest difference when I got here was how much, uh, how many people you could be recruiting at the same time. Now, when the recruiting rules changed, I think the biggest difference in 99% of being at Notre Dame and being, at what you would call a different level of baseball is just the access. It's just the access. Like if you want to recruit Jimmy Joe from, Connecticut or Missouri or Iowa, you call that coach and you're going to get on the phone with that kid
Yeah.
95% of the time. Like unless you have an LSU, a Tennessee, Mississippi State involved, like you're going to get on the phone with that kid. And that has just been different from anywhere else I've been.
I think you hit the nail on the head. And obviously, I've not been in that situation of being at Wofford and Notre Dame, but from being around the game enough and Division One coaches, that's seems like you can take more shots in the dark, if you will, and reach a lot more areas of the country and whatnot because that logo and what you guys stand for, and when you guys start building a winner year in and year out, it'll be even more. And it's something that you said earlier that I wanted to touch on too was when you first got to Wofford and you said, "Oh man, these academic requirements, I'm not going to be able to find as many kids." I thought the same thing when I was at Oglethorpe, and it's a higher academic, and we're competing with other high academics. Is like there's not that many smart people around. Like, how are we going to get these kids? And they probably stink at baseball and this and the other. But there's so many good baseball players everywhere. And you press that filter button on their academics, and you just don't lose as much of the pool as you think you'd lose. So, you really got to set yourself apart from every other player if you want to, go play college baseball. And your academics have to do that as well. Like you have to be tip top, and trying to get these kids to understand at 14 years old that what they take as a freshman in high school might matter down the road is really tough because, I mean, you were 14 at once. I was 14 at once. I was the king of taking walking, gym 1, gym 2, advanced PE 1, advanced PE 2, home ec, like all those classes because they were easy A, and you can't now, not if you want to go, you know, to a high school, and a lot of times it's gonna come down to like you and another guy, and when two admissions offices or two coaches are dissecting, how many guys do you guys sign a year?
We're gonna be between like 10 and 15.
Yeah, I mean, you're only signing 10 and 15 guys a year. You made like 30 or 35, whatever it may be. Like, you're splitting hairs sometimes with kids that are we going to offer this kid or this catcher or this catcher, especially like positions of that you're not. If you got 6 or 7 outfielders on the roster, that's not the end of the world, but you're not going to carry 6 or 7 catchers. If you play a position like catcher, then you got to understand there's only so many catchers on each roster. So now you have to really be that much better than the next guy in all facets. So, I think like you mentioned that you're just not recruiting guys to win on the field, and you're just not recruiting the guys that are going to win in the classroom. Like, you want both. But just because you're a high academic school doesn't mean that you're willing to sacrifice wins for academics. Like, you'll find baseball players that can do both. And guys just got to understand how much you have to care and how much time and effort you have to put in to get to college baseball anywhere, but specifically like a Notre Dame, and hopefully with doing all these podcast interviews, like kids start to understand that, like, oh my God, if I want to go play at Notre Dame, like I'm going to have to sacrifice some some time in high school, and I'm gonna have to take some classes that I don't really want to take, but in the long run, it's gonna be good for me, and it's gonna play out in the end because going to a school like Notre Dame gives me a great chance to play college or pro baseball. But the game's gonna give me up at some point. If you're fortunate enough, like a Mike Trout, then you don't have to work when the game gives you up. But the game's gonna give him up too, at some point, and hopefully, if you've made enough money, great. If you've not made enough money when the game decides to give you up, whether that's in high school, college, um, triple A, single A, hopefully you've got that background that you can go get a job that will pay you enough to raise the family that you want to raise and live where you want to live and whatnot. So no, we've dove into things that we haven't in the first 4 episodes. So I think that's great, and shedding light on a lot of this stuff is huge. So again, don't hesitate to get long winded. They don't want to hear from me. So they want to hear from Voltzy. So moving on, what are some? We've actually already touched on a few of them, but like red flags, like what during the recruiting process? Obviously, you mentioned one when you're at Walford, and the kid said, "I'd rather play for a bad program, but be the one that's playing, as opposed to like being the one that's keeping the chart for half the games in a good program." What are some other red flags for you specifically?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We could take that. I think I could take that a bunch of different ways, but when when I'm talking to a player and I'm trying to get this off the right way, I don't want them to be too focused on academics, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
And, like when you're having a conversation and the questions don't really get to baseball, I tell those guys all the time. I understand I coach at Notre Dame, and I want you to prioritize your academics. Um, but I'm not going to go to class with you. I'm not going to help you write a paper. My job is to make you all ACC and then make you some money in the draft and give you an opportunity to play baseball, win some games, learn some stuff, have a good time as we go. So I think one for me is like when a guy is like, "Oh man, I'm looking forward to this," and we're talking all academics, and the questions don't get to baseball very often. That'd be a red flag. I think when you have players that don't manage their time very well. So miss a call, miss a text, like that's going to happen. I get it, especially when these guys are younger. They don't have the same experiences that we do as professionals, but and they have other coaches and they're trying to do all this stuff. But like, our guys are going through this right now. Our draft eligible guys, they have scouts rolling through here all the time. You got to be able to keep your book straight. And you know, I do actually coincidentally, I do a lot of that setting up for them. But we have an arm. We have a couple arms that are scout this day, scout that day, in between class, Zoom this day, Zoom that day. And so time management's a big one. I know that's going to carry over, to when they get um, to when they get to college. And then I just try to get a feel for priorities in the phone calls. When you're talking to them and you start asking them about challenges they've had in their life or about competitions maybe they've had, somewhere in their life, and you start to feel how they respond to those. And, um, I wouldn't call that like a red flag, but that can start moving the needle in your favor or against you just through those conversations and how you've seen life up to this point.
Yeah, I think obviously there are some things that, like when you say red flag, not every red flag is the same size, right? Like some things are an absolute non-starter, no chance, no shot. I'm never recruiting this kid. That may be he doesn't have the academic grades, period. That may be he throws 82 miles an hour. But then there are other things that it's like I don't love this, but I can deal with it. But too many of those things add up to be now we can't recruit this kid. And I've made the comparison to dating before. Like recruiting is it's so much like dating. When you're dating someone and you leave the toilet seat up, it's gonna annoy your significant other, but that's not really something that it's going to be the red flag that says, I can't marry this person, but they have a serious drinking problem or gambling problem, whatever. Like that's the red flag. That's like, nah, can't do this at all. No shot. And recruiting's the same way, time management. If they do it well in high school, most likely they're going to do it well when they get to you, right? Like that's something, especially like, the cliche that females just mature at a faster and younger rate than males is so true. So you would think that who you get as a 18-year-old kid that steps on campus isn't going to be who he is when he graduates, but there's some things that you want to see before he gets to you. There's, like you said, and it sounds like, and from knowing what I know about you from Walford and the conversations we've had, you're very much like a no BS guy. Like you don't want to. Academics are important, but you just want the guy that you don't have to worry about that. Like that, it's just a known fact that he's going to take care of the academics in his classroom. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to talk about it because it's already done, right? Like, and it can be tough at that age to be there. But again, I think if some kids want this experience and they want college baseball at any level, you just have to start waking up and doing it. You got to just wake up and be part of the grind. And I don't even think it's a grind. I think it's discipline. Like nobody. There's going to be days that you don't want to get up at 6 a.m. and you don't want to stay up till 11 studying. But I don't like when people are like, "Yeah, I just grinded." It's like, oh, you were disciplined. Like you were disciplined to do it, and that discipline is something that you got to learn. You got to do it at a young age, and it sucks sometimes. But if you want to get to where you want to get to and the highest level you can get to, you got to be disciplined. So I I can appreciate the move the needle reference because again, there are some things that are just non-starters, but there's also things that's like he's done 3 of these things. If there's another thing that just irks me, I'm probably out on this kid, And
Hey,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, listening to you talk gave me kind of a chance to remember and recall some other things. But I'll tell you this: a non-starter, especially for me now, it wasn't so much when I was at Wofford because it was a little bit different. But hey, man, Shep, what's going on? This is Coach Voltz from Notre Dame. Small talk, small talk. Tell me what you know about Notre Dame. Not much. And I've had this twice, at Notre Dame, and you think it would go away, right? It's a pretty big brand, and I understood it a little more at a Wofford, or not. I understand Wofford is an extremely good baseball program, but it's just a smaller school. It's got a smaller footprint.
Right.
But if I've texted you and set up a phone call and you know nothing, or you're not even willing to start a conversation about Notre Dame, I'm good, man. Like I'm good. There's enough players out there in the country, so we'll just move on. I'll finish that conversation, and then that'll probably be it.
That reminds me of a similar type story of you remember Fitzy from U of Chicago. We were at Head First one year, and I was earshot away from him, and a kid went up to him, introduced himself. I'm really interested in the University of Chicago coach. My name's so and so. Fitzy's like, that's awesome, And the kid's like, yeah. He goes, so what are the top majors at your school? And most people listening to this are not going to know Fitzy. Fitzy's very blunt. Fitzy
Right.
said, listen, buddy, if you don't know what the top majors are and what we're about at the University of Chicago, it's not going to be the place for you. So you either need to go talk to another coach or you need to go home and do some research. And you better be really good for me to have another conversation with you. And it was just like, I was young, so I can't believe he was as blunt as he was. But like, it's absolutely true that, especially a brand like that, if a kid's like, yeah, I don't know anything about Notre Dame, and their breadth of like what they know can't be like, oh, you're the Fighting Irish. Your colors are, you have unbelievably sick gray or gold uniforms. It's got to be like you've done a little bit of research on the school, and they've got to show you that they've put in the time to do that research. Maybe it's not, you know, maybe the things that they talk about aren't maybe the things that you would think are the most important things, but like it shows that they care enough
Yeah,
to have
100%.
researched and all that. Like
I,
look.
I think what tells me, Shep, is, and this may be a little bit of a reach, but like I think it tells me I'm about to enter a mutually beneficial relationship. And like I will tell guys all the time, there are plenty of good players out there. If I wanted to find an 88 to 92 mile an hour right-handed pitcher, I could open up Twitter right now and find him like in 10 seconds, and he's uncommitted. I promise. Okay, so if if I'm about to enter into a relationship where that player is going to be like, yeah, man, tell me what you know about Notre Dame. Tell me what's Notre Dame. Recruit me, recruit me, recruit me. I'll tell players like after a phone call or two, this process should work both ways.
Mm-hmm.
You should be recruiting me. You should be reaching out. Like I'm in a current relationship with an uncommitted recruit that I love, man. This kid's great on the phone. There's sometimes I'm setting up a call, there's sometimes he's setting up a call. And that tells me like I need to dig into again, man. He's 88 to 92, just like everybody else, and I need to figure out which one is am I gonna enjoy working with the most? All right. And then usually that compounds into now that we enjoy working together, we're going to get a little more out of each other on both sides
Oh yeah.
because it's a relationship. And then that turns into overachieving. And so now we have somebody who's overachieving. And again, a little bit of a reach from conversation number one saying, oh man, you knew something about Notre Dame, but it's little things like that that happen over and over again when you're like, okay, this type of person I can get down with. And we all know in college baseball from February to May, I'm going to spend more time with these guys than I am with my wife.
Huh?
And there's got to be a little bit of that to it, man. And I'll tell another quick story. There was a left-handed pitcher who's committed to us right now, and he was uncommitted, and we recruited him for a long time. And his travel coach was like, "Man, what are you missing? You've seen him." I said, "Man, I don't know if I can get down with the personality." And it wasn't that he was rude; he was just very quiet. And he was like, "I'm telling you, man, this kid has a lot of personality. He just hasn't shown it to you yet." And we're 8, 9 conversations in, the personality starts to come out a little bit more. And I said, at one point we were on the phone. I said, "Hey, man, I'm Seth. It's great to meet you." And he was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, this is a new person." And that really was the hurdle for me. I had to get over because I'm about to invest 4 years of my life coaching this guy. And then, we took it from there and we ended up getting him committed. Um, but that meant a lot. And I'm going to continue to ramble, but
Go ahead.
um, one other thing I forgot to mention that's a green flag
Yeah.
is if that's even a thing. I don't know if that's a
No,
phrase,
it's
but
it's
like,
it's a thing now, baby.
okay, so is he secure in himself? Is he secure in himself? And I had an experience at VCU. I wasn't there long. This was at 21, but we were recruiting a kid out of the portal, and he had he like really liked to play chess, and he played the trumpet growing up, right? And those are odd things. And he was like tentative to probably well, they're odd in like the world of baseball right now in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
world.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but he was like tentative to share those with me. And then when he did share them. I was like, "Hey man, I really appreciate you sharing that with me because I think being secure in what you believe in and what you care about and what's important to you is a correlate to being confident, which is a correlate to being successful." And when he and I got that out of the way, and then he was able to kind of be himself, and he was like, "Yeah, man, like I like to play chess. I like the trumpet. This is what I do, and I throw flames and I strike people out." Like he was cool with all that.
Yeah.
I can get down with this, and we committed him there, and um, yeah, I know he and I kind of bonded over that just being secure in himself.
Yeah, and like you said, being secure. I also like being vulnerable enough to share that. Again, this is so much like dating. Like, obviously, when you're when a significant other shares something about you that's or about themselves that's kind of hard to share. Like, that kid's, probably been picked on before for playing chess and trumpet, right? Like someone at some point in his life, some jock has said, "Oh, that's the chess player." You know what I mean? Like, so to share that with a college baseball coach, and I mean, stereotypes of a Division I athlete, right? Like, you think you're going to get a jock, and they have no depth of personality, and you might think a college baseball coach might be the same way, but it's so far from the truth. And guys that uh, guys that will share things about themselves and they do off the wall stuff. I don't know why. I can think of a couple instances when I was coaching college. Like, you kind of love that because
Yeah.
while you do want guys that are 1,000, 100% dedicated to baseball and 100% dedicated to academics, it's really cool when guys also have other things that they care about, and it's cool when those things are different. Like, it's not just I threw 1,000 plyo balls today, and I did
Yeah.
I did nothing else. Oh, I had 10 pounds of chicken cutlets, and you know what I mean. And I picked up these weights. It's like also I went and kicked somebody's ass in chess. Like and I've mentioned before, and you touched on it a little bit. You spend so much time with them in January through May, all year round, not even just then, right? Like, you have to like the guy because if you don't, it's going to be miserable. And JJ said this, like, if you don't like me and I don't like you, it's going to be miserable showing up today and every day for both of us. So, kids will ask me, what do I say? What do I do? I'm like, listen, you're a dope kid. I like you a lot and I enjoy you on my team. Like, just go be yourself because coach will love you. Talk to coach like a normal person. Like, you're a human. You like to joke around and have good conversation as much as everybody. And I always tell parents, like, and you guys probably aren't riding as many buses as I did back in my day, but like, I'm gonna ride. We would go to Hendricks from Oglethorpe, and it's like a 10-hour bus ride. I'm gonna ride a 10-hour bus with you on Thursday, and then we're gonna play 3 games, and we're gonna sit in the dugout for all 3 games. And if you're lucky enough, you'll play in those games. If not, I gotta sit in the dugout with you for 27 innings. And I gotta eat with you 9 meals on the road, and then I gotta ride 10 hours back with you on the bus. It's much more enjoyable when on that bus ride we can sit and we can BS. Like, we would play. There would be a bunch of us, and we had like a iPhone app that the whole team would get on, and we'd be playing like virtual golf or something on bus rides, and like, that's fun. Like, they can bond and they can joke around. Like, a lot of people know, like, I I I game, right? I play Call of Duty and whatnot, and I'm able to talk to kids about that because they play as well. And when they're like, "Oh, coach, you stream Warzone," like, I saw that you had this big streamer in your tournament that you hosted last weekend, and then like, yeah, I did that, whatever. And I'm kind of like a little embarrassed, but then they're like, well, how were they? And then they want to like talk to you about it, and it's like, all right, I like this kid. And then down the road, when that kid wants to go for a job and that kid calls you like, coach, have you read a letter of recommendation for me? It's like, yeah, dude, absolutely. Like, you at the end of their time, like, and it for you, it may be not just a job recommendation, it may be like to a scout. Like, you want to tell that scout, I love this kid. This kid is like, this kid's a great dugout kid. He's awesome in practice. He's awesome on the bus. You want this kid, and you want to believe that. And I know I'm not going to lie for kids. I know you're the same way, where you care about your relation, your how you're perceived and what your reputation is. So you're not going to lie. I'm the same way. Like, we had a kid in our program this year that I love the kid. It was hard for him to find a school because metrically, nothing popped metrically, but he's a good player. I knew he was a good player, and it was like, it was the hardest job I've had to try to get a kid a good fit, because it was like me calling coach and saying, listen, I know in a showcase he's not going to stand out, but I promise you, I've been at the D3 level. I know where you guys compete at the D3 level. This kid, you have to give this kid a chance. You won't regret it. You know, but I was dying to make those phone calls, and luckily enough, he finally committed, and it was like, I'm just as happy, if not happier, that he committed to a small academic D3 school as I am and Andrew Manley that committed to Wofford. That's a, high academic D1 school, and I love Wofford, right? Like every D1 high academic kid I've reached out to JJ and said, "Can you look at this kid? Because I know if I send him to Wofford, he's going to be cared for and loved, and he's going to be put through the ringer because Ti is tough, and he's going to come out on the other side. He's going to be an awesome human, So we really want to sell our kids. So we want to recruit guys that give us a reason to sell. I appreciate that. And one last thing, it came up, I want to ask you about. And if you got to go right now, let me know. If you got a couple minutes to talk about this, that's great. Um, Twitter. Obviously, one of the big things is there's so many different ways to get recruited. So for me, parents want an outline of do this. Like they want to be told what to do, kind of. And I can do that, but I'm sure you'll agree that you don't find all of your kids on Twitter. You don't find all of your kids at a showcase. You don't find all of your kids in the transfer portal. Right? There's so many different ways. Friend of a friend, some guy called you, some kid randomly showed up on your door. All the different ways. When it comes to Twitter, how much do you use Twitter? How little do you use Twitter? What do you want to see when you do that? Do you look at flat ground recruiting's been awesome in terms of just exposure, getting your video out there. What kind of go into that a little bit? It's the whole world of Twitter.
Yeah, so we use Twitter. Probably I'd like to assume the same way most people do is like this is going to be the front porch of your recruiting process. And for some people, it doesn't happen that way, right? Like it happens to a coach saying, "Hey, man, you coming this weekend? Yeah, I'll be there. You need to come watch these three guys," and us falling in love with one of them, two of them, three of them. But still, usually at some point, I'm going to go look for more information because the more information we can have, the better decisions we feel like we can make.
Mm-hmm.
So Twitter is now becoming like a perfect game, honestly. Now, the only real difference is you can control your Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
You and I would just tell all the parents that are listening to this, understand that we take everything we see with a grain of salt. We understand it's a highlight reel
Mm-hmm.
the vast majority of the time, but it still brings value. If you show a video of, hey, man, this is so and so, this is me hitting three doubles in my last tournament. At least we get to see those swings.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not there, we get to see those swings. Or here's a video of me. I threw 5 innings, 10 strikeouts, touched 88. Okay. I know that's not the full picture I'm looking at, but I know, okay, he's getting some swing and miss. He threw 5 innings. So obviously his team likes him, right? Like most, if you're a bad pitcher, you usually come out before that. And he threw the ball, this hard. We can kind of take you at your word there. Then we're going to go look for background, some more background information. So can we get some verified, PBR, perfect game? Can we, field level, whatever? We can get something that's verified. Um, but it allows us to start conversations. I mean, there's plenty of times that, one of us on a coaching staff may see a player that we're like, hey, that could be a good fit. And we start shooting it around the group message, and somebody probably knows one of their coaches and can dig into it a little bit more. And, um, you said it best. If you put a bunch of college coaches in a room and talked about all the different recruiting stories, there's one of someone showing up on someone's back porch, and there's one of sight unseen. And hey, man, I just took a flyer on this kid, and I really trusted the coach, and he was the best player I've ever met. Right. Um, all in all, I think Twitter's a great. I think Twitter's great. I just don't try to get an offer from it, but it can get you in the door.
Right. I mentioned that a lot of times to our parents is when you send an email and it's got a video attached, or you're posting to Twitter, any school worth its salt, any coach worth its salt, is most likely not going to offer you right straight away 99% of I saw this kid do this, I got to offer him. Your goal with those videos and your goal with the emails and is to pique interest.
Yep.
I want Coach Voltz to see I touched 88 or I touched 90, and I want Coach to say, "Yo, Coach Shep, when is this kid throwing? Because I want to come see him." And then you're gonna start the process of getting to know the kid on the. You're gonna come see him. Let's say you like what you see. You know, he spins it, whatever. Everything's good. He checks those boxes the first time you see him because you're probably gonna want to see him more than once. Only signing 10 to 15 guys. Then you're gonna start the what's this kid like in the classroom? What's this kid like on the phone? What's this kid like on a visit? How does this kid talk to his parents? How does he interact with his parents? How does he interact with his teammate? All of those things, and you start to dive deep. That like front, I like that analogy of the front porch. Like it's the drive by. Oh, that looks good enough. Let's go inside and let's see.
Yep.
Let's open up the front door. Let's see what this kid's got. Let's see those granite countertops. Or we got laminate. Whatnot. So I think that's something to keep in mind from parents that everything matters. What they post, what they put on there. When kids ask me to make a recruiting video, I'm like, okay, what do you do best? Kids like, well, I run a 6'3". Awesome. What's your worst thing?
First thing.
My pull downs are 72 from the outfield. All right, listen, the first thing that we're going to post on your video, the first clip is going to be you running a 6'3" 60. The last thing that we're going to post and or not post it at all is the arm from the outfield, because it's not pulling the wool over a coach's eyes, but it's like when a coach calls me and says, I saw this kid ran a 6'2", 6'3", and also his exit velo is about what we're looking for. What else can you tell me about him? I'm going to tell him all these good things if they check out. And then I'm going to mention before you come, the only downside, his arm's not great from the outfield. And you're going to say, okay, well, I like all those other things enough. I'm going to come watch him. And the arm, when you see it, it may be a non-starter, right? He may be throwing hand grenades from left field. But you also may say, listen, I believe in our arm care. We're going to put him in. He's not a pitcher, but we're going to put him in our velo development program, and we can get that to satisfactory because all the other tools play out. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you're really trying to just highlight yourself and what you do well to pique the interest of coach to get him there. And again, you're going to run through that process. And like, how many guys are on your recruiting board for a 20? What are you're recruiting 26s now,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I mean, how many guys do you have on your recruiting board right now?
15.
How big will that get?
We're talking about 15 arms. Once we go through the summer, it'll probably get to like 30, 35 arms that we're comfortable with.
So that's kids going in right now. They're juniors going into their senior year
So
for next
our,
summer.
we're not able to actively recruit the 26s, but we have already have like 12 kids in the 25
Okay.
class.
Okay.
So it's like perfect fit in that class, but we're transitioning to like we're using our camps to get evaluations of 26s. So when we can communicate with them in the summer, we're ready to roll.
I'm a year ahead. I'm a year ahead of myself. I meant to ask how many 25s are you recruiting right now? Like the junior class, how many you got on your board?
We have 12 or 13 committed, so we're short list now. There's a couple positional players and a couple pitchers that are still having phone calls, that are uncommitted.
Do you save? I guess this will probably change year to year based on who you have and how much you like them. Will you save a spot or two so next summer when you're out looking at 2026s to add to your board? That way, August 1st, you can call them. Say you see a 25, and you're like, we have to recruit this kid. Like, do you save a spot for that?
Stiff's really good about that. Like he's been doing this for 25 years, and
Mm-hmm.
he's always like, all right. I know we love everything that we have, but you know there's going to be somebody next summer. So just make sure we have a little bit of room.
Mm-hmm.
Stiff's adamant because I get all excited because I'm like, oh man, there's all these good arms and they want to come to Notre Dame. Let's figure this all out. And he's like, let's make sure we have a spot left for the guy who pops up next summer.
Yeah. No, that's good. That makes sense. Coach, I know you got to go soon. So we'll wrap this up and very quick. We'll do our cheesy. Let me pull up these questions. We call it a lightning round. Obviously, we're the ATL Lightning and
Sure, I'm
whatnot.
ready.
So, ask you some quick questions. It can be short, quick responses. Um, they don't matter. Not relevant to recruiting. Just getting to know you. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yes.
Man, you're the first one out of 5 to say yes. Gio would love you. This is, we talk about those bus debates. This is always a big one every year. Hot dog a sandwich. Best sunflower seed flavor.
Branch.
Guy. Gatorade flavor.
Lemon lime.
You're not a color guy. You're an actual flavor guy.
Yeah. Lemon lime's a flavor. Yeah.
I would have. Most guys say like
Yellow.
most guys say purple. A simple-minded people say purple. JJ says purple. He's a very simple-minded guy. You got any pregame superstitions?
Nope. I don't do superstitions. I do routines. So
Big Green Monster.
routine.
Big Green Monster, or Chicago Ivy.
So I know this is supposed to be quick, but we actually played at both of those parks this year.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, we played at Wrigley and at Fenway in like a 10-day span. And I don't think you can beat the allure and like the history of Fenway. And I
Mm-hmm.
think maybe it just means more to me because at my age, like the Red Sox have been better and they've been, the Cubs just haven't been as prevalent. But Chicago was so nice. Like their dugouts were redone, their bullpens were like it was just very, very nice.
It's an old stadium too. I mean,
it is an old stadium, but like it was very state of the art. Fenway, like you're going to pee in the dugout and you're ducking your head and there's a broom this close to your face. So it's definitely a different vibe.
it's a little nostalgic too. It almost takes you back to like when.
Yeah, you're like, hey, babe, the babe was in here.
Yeah.
We were both ducking our heads trying to use that. So I'll say Fenway.
What is your favorite MLB ballpark?
Truist, because I'm a Braves. I'm a homer.
Where are you from?
I'm from Richmond, Virginia, but that we used to have the Richmond Braves when I was growing up. So
Okay, that's why. I knew you said you were from Virginia. I didn't know if you maybe were born there and you grew up in Atlanta, or you have a lot of fans, obviously, with this podcast being a Braves fan. So
yeah, before they went to Gwinnett, they were in Richmond. So
that place is fun too. Gwinnett. I don't know if you've been there.
once.
Went to a few games there and actually ran a few clinics there, camps there. Had first hosted one there actually. Who's your favorite baseball player?
Greg Maddux.
Out of the 5 coaches that have been on here, when I asked this question, I would have just assumed it would be current day guys. Nobody said a current day guy, which it just surprised me.
It is odd, yeah.
Are you pro or anti-shift?
Pro. And you can tell JJ, I got him on the shift, so he's going to tell you that he's pro shift. He didn't shift until he met Coach Voltz.
Really?
Yeah. Spread the word.
It's so funny. I mean, if any of my old 16, 17 kids that have graduated or played for me, they'll get a kick out of this because even in travel ball, we would shift like crazy, man. And it was like we kind of got, sometimes we get mocked about it, and of course we're going to give up a hit or two the other way when you're playing pull side, but I love shifting and I'll do it all day. We won a game on the 5-man infield. I could have retired after I could have retired from coaching that day when I called time and I brought in our center fielder to play in between short and third, and there was a missile hit straight to him, and we threw it home, threw it to first, won the game. peak of my coaching career was that decision. I loved
That's
it. Adam Sandler or Vince Vaughn?
Adam Sandler.
Big League Chew, Double Bubble.
Big League Chew.
Coach, that's really all I got for today. I appreciate you coming down on. I know we went a little long. You know, that was one of the best combos we've had. It was different, and we talked about a lot of things that hadn't been mentioned before. And you're more than welcome on anytime. I think you bring so much value, just being at the different places that you were, and going into why you chose VCU, and just because you wanted to win, I think is awesome. And again, whatever you had said, I would have appreciated that you just were honest about it, because I think a lot of coaches want to say what they think the parents want to hear, and that's not what I want out of this podcast. I want our parents and our players to get to know you guys and kind of get to understand where you're coming from and what you're thinking and why you're recruiting kids you are. So I appreciate all that, and you got anything to plug? You got any camps coming up? You part of any foundations or anything that you want to shed some light on?
No, I don't know foundations. We do have 2 camps in December. We do them indoor. We got a 100-yard turf in here. If you Google Notre Dame baseball camps, it'll pop up. And we, like I said, we're still recruiting the 25s, but we're really trying to evaluate and identify the 26s that are going to be recruitable. So if we got some good 26s that want to play Notre Dame, that's a good place to start.
What jersey is your favorite? I gotta ask for Gio, because actually, you've met Gio before, correct? I don't know if you have. Have you met Gio before? The head guy that was at Oglethorpe, the guy that runs ATL Lightning? Might not have.
Oh no, I've not met him. No.
He's a huge Notre Dame fan. Obviously football being the biggest, but when I told him, I said, I got Voltz on. He's like, all right, cool. Who's Voltz? I was like, well, he's at Wofford. He's like, where's he at now? I was like, Notre Dame. He goes, oh my God, that's sick. And he was like sending me screenshots of their uniforms. So which ones do you like the best?
I like the blue on blue.
Blue on blue.
I didn't like them right away, but at the end of the year, they grew on me.
They grew on you.
Yeah.
I wanted to put the clover as the logo, but I just go with the ND. I think it's the green for some reason just stands out in a good way. And maybe it's because it's Notre Dame and whatnot, but like the green and gold, I think is just an awesome combo, but it's not a combo that everybody can pull off. So, again, I want a special thanks to lineupcards.com, our sponsor for today. If you guys have any lineup card needs, head over there. They'll do the wall dugout cards, and they'll do the 4-stack that you can write your daily lineup out on. Those guys are awesome. Customer service is great. The guy that runs the organization or runs the company is an awesome human, awesome dude. Appreciate everyone for tuning in today. If you have not subscribed to us on YouTube, press that subscribe button. We also can be found on Apple and Spotify. Go ahead, subscribe to that, download. It helps us out. And until next week, everybody have a good Thanksgiving.